we're going to be going through a Google Doc. I put together a Google Doc with 8 core, I guess, categories of data from what parents are looking for, how to get on their short list, what knocks you off their short list, all that good stuff. And so we'll try to make it as interactive as possible. If you can use the chat feature, or certainly if you have a question, pop it into Q&A. Um, but let's get rolling. So I'm gonna share my screen and
And I have to say, I'm so excited about your topic today because I know, for so many school administrators, the word data makes us cringe.
yeah.
And yet it is so important in our practice because if we can get a handle on the data and use it effectively, it's a game changer.
I agree because we can make assumptions about maybe the social media channels that people are using, or should we run open houses or not run open houses? Like, what do parents really want? Like, but there's really good data out there, and the nice part is there's a lot of big companies out there that are doing all this survey data that provide us with all this great information that it gives us really good insights. And I can speak, from personal experience in the sense of I work with a lot of schools with their marketing and with their advertising. And when we get to things like, what should we put in our ad? What type of messaging? And when you go through the data like we're going to go through today, this really gives you a good starting point of, hey, should we focus on academics? Should we focus on some another aspect? This data is actually going to point to some um, really clear elements of what parents are looking for, why they change schools, and it really tells you, hey, if we're not already, we should be including this in our marketing. So yeah, I love this stuff. I'm excited to get into it as well. And what's also really cool is if anybody wants to stay around towards the end, I'll share with you. If you're not familiar with who I am, I didn't even do intros, and I'll turn it over to Lindsay for you to do an intro. I own the software marketing platform called Ames. It's at getames.co. And we've also partnered with the Montessori Compass to build what's called the Growth Suite. It's an all-in-one marketing, admissions, and classroom management tools for Montessori schools and also for really all private schools. And what's really cool is I'll talk about this at the end if anybody wants to hear about the software, is that, what we're going to go through today, especially as how you need to be doing your marketing, we essentially plug that into the software. So it's like plug and play, one click install, where you have your marketing and admissions, essentially the key elements of how to influence parents' decisions done. So if we want to talk about that, if you're interested in a demo, we'll talk about that at the end. Let us know in the survey as well. Like, hey, I want more information. We'll schedule some time to do a demo so you can see it in action. We're not going to do a demo today. Just want to mention that, the software that we've put together and the services reflect this data. And so, Lindsay, let me turn it over to you as well. Just if anybody hasn't been on recently and not familiar with who you are and what you're up to.
Thanks, Clint. So I'm Dr. Lindsay Pollock. I'm the provost at Sarasota University, which is a boutique university offering a bachelor's completion program in Montessori education. We have two Masters of Arts degrees, both one in, they're both in Montessori. One is Montessori education and the other is Montessori leadership. And the pinnacle of academic programming in our university is the Doctor of Education in Montessori education. So we have a doctoral program, and for those of you who may have started a doctorate somewhere else and life interrupted your course of study, we have a doctoral completion program as well. So if you're interested in any of those programs, Montessori or not, I'd love to have a chance to talk with you. And Clint, I'll turn it back to you.
Cool. That's great, and thank you again for joining us. It's awesome having you as a panelist. And yeah, let's dive in. Let's start the conversation. And what we've been all looking at right here is this first one. Like I said, we have 8 core categories of data. The ninth that we're going to go through is really summarizing it all. And so this first one is, why are parents looking at private schools? What are they looking for? And especially if they're changing schools, and I think this is specifically from niche, is that what were parents looking for when they were thinking about changing schools or exploring new school options? And this is one of those data points that is clear, head and shoulders above the rest, which is when families are looking to potentially switch schools, it has to do with academics, right? And now what you're going to find in another data point is what parents were initially looking for in a school is actually different than why they changed schools. And so we'll go into that here in a second. But this is specifically 65% listed academics as the number one reason families started to explore new schools. Very interesting. Now that's followed by um, other schools maybe have higher rankings, athletics. You can see cost is all the way down here at the bottom. So it's one of those things where as long as you're fulfilling on your value proposition, they'll continue to pay. But if you're not, then they're going to potentially look elsewhere. But that also ties back into maybe one of those value props was the academics. So um, we're going to come back to it. So I want to just cite what's here, and then Truth Tree also did a survey, and they said parents were searching for safe, nurturing environment, challenging environment, quality of education, and they didn't like the drama potentially of public schools. These are other things that they cited, and Ed Choice, they did the similar survey. They were looking for 85% said better learning environment, better education, smaller class sizes, um, better prep for college. So these were what the top six, seven, eight here. Student safety. The thing that wasn't a top driver for families were they're not interested in higher standardized test scores. I don't think that comes as a surprise to anybody, but 0% listed it as a single most important reason. Only 4.2% included it as a top three reason. So I don't think that comes as a surprise. But I'm going to sum it up. Then I would love to turn it over. Anybody has any thoughts and questions or anything that's surprising? And how I look at this, and I'm going to come at this in large part from a marketing and mission state of mind, but especially with marketing, because I help schools with their ad campaigns. And, I think about like I was just meeting with a school and we were reviewing their elementary and middle school campaigns. And I was thinking about, well, if somebody's going into your middle school and if it's not like the normal entry year, right? Or a normal feeder school, then many times they have to switch schools.
Mhm.
And so as you're thinking about that, you have to make sure that in your messaging, you're highlighting your academics because we know that 70% of families, at least from that one survey, are citing academics as the main reason they changed. So being able to um, match what they're looking for with that messaging is extremely important. Now, the question is, how do you do that? One of the things I would recommend not doing is talking about features of your school. Hey, we have an outdoor classroom and we have this program and that program. That's great. What parents really want is what's the end result. And so this is where I'm going to just tie in some personal experience with this, where with working with schools is, and I'll use the example. I was just talking with a school that goes up to eighth grade, and we had this. This is the exact conversation that we had. And when I was asking them about, what okay, what should we put in the ad? And they were citing a lot of the features of the school. And I was like, yeah, that's not really what we want to put that maybe in the ad, but might want to lead with. And I asked them, I was like, well, if you go up to eighth grade, are families looking, are they concerned? Are they questioning where kids are going to go off to high school? So long story short, we talked about how, hey, when you come to our school, they're going to be ahead of their peers. They're going to get into the best high school of their choice. So it was talking about what parents want, which is making sure their child is prepared for um, the next grade, right? High school, or if we go up to high school, being prepared for college. And then how do you do that? That's where you can talk about what you offer. So um, that's how I looked at this data, which was highlighting academics, safety, community. Those are other common words. Every time I've run an ad campaign using the words with safety and community, or maybe not use the word safety per se, but just the community and some of those soft words like family like atmosphere, things like that, that typically does really, really well. So before we move on to the next one, yeah. So key takeaways. Let me see if I missed anything. Environment, academic, safety, individual attention. Certainly not highlighting test scores. Um, messaging that sounds like smaller, safer, more focused on the child and values. Again, things I think we all know, and but making sure that that's being highlighted and making sure that, especially when it comes to ads, you're not just saying, hey, we're a great school, we've been around for 30 years and families love us. We want to highlight the this in our messaging. Anything surprising with this data or any questions before moving on?
Clint, you make such a good point with the analysis of the data that even though, like on a heart level, we may be in tune to some of these things, really making sure that we're messaging those priorities and looking at the data helps us align our messaging to the priorities of the families. So we've got the numbers there to
Yeah.
really reinforce some of those intuitive, those observations that we've made.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And looking at this data, and I'll just give one more example before we move on. I think about, I was working with a school and they did a thing where they highlighted the feature about their outdoor classrooms. And when they did a parent survey and they found out that the parents were actually looking for more of a community and safety because they were competing with a lot of public schools. Um, when we changed that ad campaign over, their results were 3x of what it was when they were just focusing on, hey, we have these outdoor classrooms and they're great. And, they thought that would be the big differentiator between the public schools. But, it goes back to, hey, these are the things we need to be communicating. The environment, academics, safety, individual attention. Those are the things they want to see. All right, let's keep moving along. This is always an interesting one. How long parents research and when do they start? I know, again, I'll keep mentioning it as my experience in talking with schools with advertising. We want to run an ad, we want parents to see the ad, and then we want them to click and inquire and apply. And the reality is that's very unlikely to happen, especially from an ad, because what we know is close to 50% of enrolled families spend at least 12 months researching and evaluating their school options before enrolling. Only 10% decided in under a month. And usually those are families that they know they're going to come. They've got other family, their legacy families, um, that they're ready to make a decision. So there's a small population that's ready to make a decision essentially today, but the majority of the families are truly doing their due diligence. Um, the admissions team should assume a long and multi-touch journey. Um, I'll give a quick aside from HubSpot and this company called C3 Metrics. They essentially said um, do you need between 11 and 33 touch points with somebody before they're ready to make any sort of decision. And Cube Creative here, they said 6 out of 10 parents are actively searching for schools throughout the year, not just during traditional enrollment windows. And let me show you this. And some of you may have seen me if you've been on any of my webinars before about marketing, you may have seen me present this. But I think this is important to look at Google Trends as you're thinking about your marketing, your budget, when to spend more of your time, money, resources. Let me show you something with Google Trends. So Google Trends gives us an insight into when people are going to Google and Google's identifying search intent. So let's type in private schools. And let's take a look at past 12 months. And let's talk about. So we are here right now. Now, what this is on a scale of 0 to 100. What is the interest over time, right? So low interest, high interest. So now what this also shows is it's never zero, right? There's always some interest throughout the year. But as we look today, we're approaching holiday time. You can see we're going to start to hit a trough here. It's going to go down as we get into New Year's. Not a surprise, right? But then as soon as we get into January into New Year, we hit a peak in late January, early February, but it starts rising between January 1st and then you can see really we're at this peak time period really through Memorial Day, through the end of May. Then we start to decline a little bit through the 4th of July. And then as we get towards the end of the summer and into the fall, we hit a peak again. We go through the fall, kind of stays pretty high, and then you get back to Thanksgiving time, and you drop to kind of where we are right now. So even if that doesn't match your exact enrollment cycles, especially as we get into end of winter, early spring, in this time period here, understand that many families are doing their research even all the way through May, and it's still good to keep your marketing on because of the data, and then Google supports this data. And the other key piece here is that almost half are in the research mode for 12 plus months. Many, when I was talking with a school earlier in the week, they were like, "Yeah, we had a family come on a tour and the baby wasn't even born yet." So that they're a couple of years away. And so making sure one, your marketing is always on. Two, you have a multi touch point process. So let's say you have an open house today. You follow up with them. You hope they apply. You hope they come for a tour. Some will, most won't. That doesn't mean they're not ready 6 months from now, 12 months from now. So having a multi-step touch points in place, that could be adding them to your newsletter, sending an email once a week, but staying in touch with them is extremely important. Questions? All right. Anybody stop me if you want me to go back to anything, but it looks like we'll keep on rolling. Um, all right. Where parents start and the platforms they use. I'm going to complement this data with something I was reading recently about social media. I don't have the data in here, but about the most popular social media platforms for high schoolers, younger parents. So we'll talk about that here in a second. But let's talk about what the data is showing. When asked about their first step in the research process, over 50% of families said it started with online search, right? So Google, being found in Google was of paramount importance. So the dominant players were Google, 25% from niche.com. Other platforms, pretty low. Um, AI search engines. Now, this was from Niche hasn't released the 2025 report. We're not done 2025. But the 2024 report, AI at that point wasn't used as much. So with that being said, I will say that for everybody to start putting this on their radar, because as we all know, you go to Google now, many times the first search result or the first answer is something that's AI related. There's AI search engines now, there's AI browsers. It's only going to move faster and get more AI involved. So I will say getting your school prepared to rank, being able to be found in an AI search. If anybody has a question about that or needs help with that, we actually have a tool that helps with that. Um, we could talk about that towards the end. But Google, getting found in Google. And it's important to know, like, what does that mean, getting found in Google? There's really three places that you could try to dominate in the search engine. So let's just type in private schools near me. And the first result is going to be your paid search result. So the sponsor result, you pay per click, and you could show up at the top. So that's one spot. The nice part is you could be there tomorrow. All you have to do is pay. And it's typically a pay per click basis. You can be in these places. We call these maps. You could also have an ad there, but for the most part, 3 organic listings. So that's a great place to show up in. And then organically at the top of the search engine, in a top 3 position is ideal. That's where about 50% of all the clicks happen is in these top 3. So when you talk about getting found, how do you get found? These are the 3 main ways. Some of this is paid. Other involves, if you're familiar with search engine optimization, that's how to get found there. All right. So takeaway, parents are still living in Google, niche.com. I mean, I don't know if anybody here is from Niche. I know they have a very expensive package you can pay for. I just say, usually what I say is make sure your niche profile is up to date. It's looking, it's the most up to date it can be and as optimized as it can be. You don't have to necessarily pay to be there, just as long as it's optimized, your reviews are up to date. And we'll talk about reviews here in a second. But yeah, those are the key takeaways. That is how families are finding. And then here's where I wanted to go. Which digital channels influence them the most? So no surprise that school website's going to be at the top here because the landing point, no matter where somebody finds you, the Google niche, it's going to be your website. Search and review sites. So having up-to-date reviews is really important. both on Google, on Niche, on some of the other ones. Um, Emails plays a role. So in a top three position here, digital channels that influence them the most emails. So making sure that if somebody is a prospective parent and they get onto your email list, make sure you're emailing them throughout the year. The easiest thing to do is put them into a newsletter. If you have a blog, emailing them about new blog posts. That's important. Online forums and social media groups. In particular, do we talk about this here? Yeah, here. Facebook groups have the highest influence. They're the highest influence social channel. So we all likely have those parent Facebook groups, those local groups. Those are very influential. There's only so much you can maybe do in there organically because you just hope that parents write good reviews and or say, hey, where's just moving in the area, where should we go? And you hope you get listed there. But I know with many of those groups, you can reach out and pay for advertising space or pay to make a promotional post. Like if you have an event coming up, you can make a post about that event. It's usually only a couple $100. That could be a really good bang for your buck um, for those groups. But social media. Oh, hold on. You got a Q&A. Marlene, how can we get a copy of this information? But I'm going to put in the chat here shortly. Um, and it'll also be sent out typically with the recording. But yeah, I'll put it in the chat here with you. Because I know there's going to be a lot of data that we're going through. Let's talk about social media here for a second. So I was reading a report about the social media channels that are most used by different age groups. When it comes to baby boom, let's do some guessing. Let's do some quizzing. Um, for millennials and baby boomers, what do we think the number one social media channel is for that age group? So let's say 40 plus. Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got. Put in the chat. Put in the chat. What do we think is the social media channel? Emily says Facebook. Facebook. Yeah. Facebook is it. It goes Facebook, then Instagram. Another vote for Facebook. Yeah, Facebook's the winner. Facebook is still top priority for, let's say, like the 40-year-old plus age group. And then one of the things we also know, and I think it's in here, um, it might be in here, but one of the things we know is that the decision of which school to go to is the age at which the student has the influence is getting younger and younger. So one of the things we knew over the past 5-10 years is that the high school decision is in large part made by the student. The middle school decision, it's close to like 50-50. But we're seeing now with the data that students are having decision making ability even in elementary school. Point is, um, we know that teens, they're on these platforms as well. So as you're creating content that resonates with teens, with these younger students as well, can play a role. So here's my question for you. What do you all think is the number one platform for, let's say, folks in their 20s, teens? What do we think the number one platform is? We've got TikTok, we've got Instagram, we've got Snapchat. I will say Snapchat was at the bottom of the list. TikTok, Instagram, TikTok, Instagram. Instagram was number two. TikTok was it 3 or 4? It was not number one, and that really surprised me. The number one was YouTube. So YouTube and video and even long form video is playing more and more of an impact. And I know we all, to some degree, have a YouTube channel, very likely. You may not post to it as frequently as you might on Facebook and Instagram. Those will still remain your top two priorities in terms of channels. But more and more people are spending more and more time on YouTube consuming content, and the length of content is getting longer as well. So don't feel like you
Interesting.
only have to make 8-second clips. Um, if you're going to do the Instagram reel that's 30 seconds, might as well put that on YouTube for YouTube short. But
Mm.
don't be afraid to even create longer form content, 5-minute content, 8-minute content on YouTube. It is being used both by certainly parents and students.
Clint, I'm shocked. I would never have thought about YouTube at all.
Yeah.
That is fascinating.
It has been on the rise. I've been keeping an eye on social media platforms. It's been on the rise every year, and I keep hearing the same thing. Oh, YouTube's playing more of a role. More people are on YouTube. Watch times are increasing. That we hear about TikTok for obvious reasons, right? And it
Sure.
is an influential platform. The engagement is really high there, but more people are on YouTube, and it is driving more decision making.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
Thank
it's really
you.
interesting.
Yeah, that is so interesting.
Let me see. Channels, blogs play a role.
You
Yeah,
know,
this,
Clint, one of the
yeah,
things I hear people say is I can only do one social media channel because I just can't keep up with all these different platforms. Do you have
yeah,
any advice for folks? Like, how do you manage multiple platforms? Maybe that's the topic of a future discussion we have, but I know that's something I hear a lot
yeah.
from folks.
Now, small plug. That's what part of our software platform does for you. There's a part of it that essentially what I recommend to do is you post to all the platforms in one shot. You have to typically use a tool to do that. Right now, there's other tools out there. Like if you're familiar with tools like Hootsuite or Buffer or Later, now they'll cost you like $100 a month just for that tool. We put it into our platform at no cost because it is important. And so here's what I recommend. If let's say you're going to post a video on Instagram, right? You're going to post a reel. That reel works on Facebook. So now Facebook and Instagram already have a connection, so that's easy. That reel can be a TikTok post. That reel can be a YouTube short. So you can make one piece of content and at least establish a presence on these other platforms just by like, hey, when you post here, make sure you post it over there too. So that's my usual recommendation. Even LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn ties in very well to what you would usually post on Facebook, per se. Now, look, if you look up the gurus out there, the social media gurus, and what they tell you to do, yes, they would say you could wave the magic wand. Your content on each platform should be different and match the content. I get that, but you're all probably wearing a million hats and you're not going to be able to do that. So being realistic, having at least a presence on those platforms, I think is really, really important. It can only do good for you. So imagine this: you have a platform, you connect your Facebook, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, your YouTube, and your TikTok. You make one piece of content, you hit go, and it shoots to all those platforms. That's what I would recommend for most schools.
Great advice, Clint. Thank you.
Absolutely. That's a great question. Uh, Here we go. Just make sure I didn't see questions. Okay, let's keep rolling here. What else we have here? Social media impact. We talked about Facebook groups. Um, which
Clint,
platform? Yep.
oh yeah, you saw it too. The same chat.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So, Sandra, I will say, I mean, this is just to answer your question. If you go to montessoricompass.com/growth suite, I mean, this is our software that we have, and it does a lot of what we're talking about. But one of the things it does is it allows you to post to social media. If you have time, you want to hang out towards the end, I'll show you. I just didn't know if there was anything on this page that showed it. Um, so you can go here. This will do that. Let me put it to everybody. Now, you can also do something like you go to, if you wanted just the tool, whoops, Hootsuite is one of the more popular ones as well that allows you to post to all those channels. I don't know what's their pricing these days. Yeah. So it's going to cost you $100 a month just to use it I don't recommend most schools paying this much for this. This is going to give you a lot of bells and whistles that most schools don't even bother with. So they're out there. They'll cost you $50 to $100 a month. If our software does it, and you get a whole lot more to do your marketing. We can talk about that at the end. Um, but yeah, let me see what else we're talking about here. Research patterns. Most read 6 to 8 online reviews, visit 4 to 5 websites, spend 2 to 3 hours researching before contacting a school. Um, and that's from Cube Creative. Again, not a surprise here. We know reviews play a role. I will tell you there's 3 core benefits to online reviews. And what I recommend to many schools is to once a quarter run a review campaign, pull in parent ambassadors or any parents you think will write you a good review, put together a couple of emails encouraging them to do reviews. I'm not sure about you, but I'm not above bribes. So I've seen schools have a lot of success where it's like, hey, if you post a review, you'll be entered into a giveaway for $100 gift card or something like that to Amazon. I've seen that work really, really well because I always hear like, oh, I asked, and nobody writes a review. Well, one, you probably need at least 3 emails, one week apart. But getting back to that, reviews play a key role in 3 ways. One is certainly, what did we see here? As soon as I Google, reviews are right in your face, right? 4.4, 4.9, those are Google reviews. They'll also usually pull in niche as well. So naturally, that's going to play a role. The other role it plays is that when you're getting consistent reviews, that actually helps with your Google rankings. Google will look at that as part of their algorithm and say, this school's getting reviews, that school isn't. It gives you potentially a leg up on them in ranking higher. And then 3, I mean, certainly it's always good to have, if somebody looks at your reviews and it's like there was a great review from a month ago versus 2 years ago, that's important in and of itself. But it also, if you ever had like spammy type of reviews that sometimes are really hard to get away, or maybe you did have a negative review 4 years ago, but if it's on that first page, parents are going to see that. And so if you get a couple positive reviews, you can push some of these old reviews down and on the page 2 or 3 where they don't see them anymore. All right. And devices, no surprise that mobile is above desktop. I will say I was a little bit surprised and that this number wasn't higher. I thought it would be more like 80% on mobile and you know 18%, let's say, on desktop, but no surprise that mobile is a driving factor. So what are the takeaways? Parents are finding you through Google, niche, review platforms, your website, SEO, your niche profile, and email still plays a role. I feel like we forget about email. It seems like old school at this point, but email is a really great touch point. And social media does matter, especially Facebook groups. So, any other aha moments, questions? All right, let's keep rolling through.
Clint, while
Yes.
we're talking about marketing, one of the things that was very successful for me when I opened a private school was also thinking about the community of businesses around me that might
Mm,
also be interested in learning more, especially realtors, because they were welcoming new families to the area. And so, I I don't know if you have another marketing strategy or a separate uh, part of your CRM that analyzes the like maybe volunteers and connections in the community as well. But I found that to be a very useful tool for me, especially in a private school setting. And in a public school setting, I was always mindful of area businesses and partnering for fundraising and,
yeah.
community events where we might host an event at a nearby business, but also thinking about getting the word out to the area around you, because that word of mouth is also, I have found in my experience, a important factor in marketing.
Couldn't agree with you more. And that's actually, I think, right here. Niche, I think it's from Niche. 70% said presence at community events will influence their choice. There you go, spot on. Yeah, making connections in the community, being active in the community, visible in the community is paramount. Um, and one of the things I saw that maybe this is kind of related to this, which is when we think about other influential decision makers, is our feeder schools.
Mhm.
And I bring that up because yes, we would all love the feeder school to promote your school. Some might do it better than others. One thing I saw was really cool. It was done by a school. Is they got all of their alumni and like really good alumni results, right? You know how we all have those quick facts. X amount went on to the college of their choice and things like that. They created those quick facts about how successful their alumni were, or what colleges they went to, or what high schools they went to. But they customized it for the feeder school. So they went to like the head of school or the principal of that school and said, "Look, from your school to ours, look at how successful they've been." So it gives the feeder school confidence to know that if they recommend your school, here's the results that you can have. So it was like taking those quick facts that might be on your website and
Sure.
customizing those for schools or even for it could be realtors, it could be for anybody. Just giving them that type of document can be really impactful as well. All right. So yeah, and then so this goes to kind of offline touch points, which is what's the new inquiry? Events are the new inquiry, right? We all likely have some form of inquiry form on our website, but really the first touch point, the first step that families are taking to learn about the school after they're doing their digital research is by attending an event. So having events, even virtual events. I see schools do really, really well with virtual events, and even specifically, we'll call like niche virtual events, meaning or topic specific virtual events. For example, come to our virtual info session about our financial aid program. Come to our virtual info session about our athletics. Come to our virtual info session about our STEM program, whatever it might be. So you have info sessions about specific topics. It doesn't just have to be a um, a general about the school. I was even talking with the school earlier in the week. They even have because I think about more about virtual info sessions, kind of like this, like a webinar or webcast. You're doing a slide deck, you're making presentations. They would literally, if somebody couldn't attend an in-person tour for whatever reason, they would jump on a Zoom call, put it on the iPad, and literally walk around the school with their iPad. So if you're not doing virtual, I mean, yes, we all want families to come on campus, but virtual can just be another channel to get their interest and give them more information about the school, and then encourage them to take the next step with you. So, and 74% even said that virtual tours and events are influential. But 38% events were number one, submitted inquiry form two, called 18%, email 11, and applied without any other contact. Kind of supports what we've been saying. They're not just going to apply unless they're a legacy family. They already know they want to apply. So having events are the new form of inquiry. All right, we talked about community presence, school fairs, community events, conversation with current families. Let's see if I missed anything here. But yeah, so essentially, big takeaway: you got to do digital to kind of get you on the short list, but then it's that visit, right? And so, what I always recommend the schools is as you're thinking about how do we get more applications. Um, you might say, well, hey, we just need more people at our event. We need more inquiries. We need more families at the top of the funnel. But look at those conversion rates from your visit to application or tour to application. And if it's on the lower side, now I think what NAIS says is it should be like in the mid 40% on a national average. You really want to look at your own data over the course of the last 3 to 5 years of what's the percentage of families that come for a tour that then apply, and if you start seeing that number shrink, like, hey, what's going on? Is there something that's going on in the visit? Is it a follow-up issue? So it can point you in the direction of, how to make sure you're keeping those numbers up. Um, all right, let's continue moving along here. what they look for in a school and what knocks your school off the list. So let's just talk through these. What parents evaluate new schools most commonly and strongly considered factors. So initially, now this is actually going to be a little bit in contrast to the first data point where we said, what are families looking for when they switch schools? Where 70% were said academics. Many times that's not the initial thing, though, that if they're looking for um, a new school, that they're looking for availabilities of clubs and social organizations, 70%. Distance, not a surprise. School rankings. I always say if you have a good ranking, one of those badges, maybe niche vote, had a top A plus rated school, whatever it might be, put that front and center on your website. Um, Safety, class sizes, reviews, sense of community, academics that were already down all the way down at the bottom of this list. But we know when they're switching schools, this is a major factor. So these are the things also to consider highlighting, especially for um, prospective family marketing. Most important quality in the school, truth be saying, academics, teachers, not a surprise, safe, nurturing environment. I feel like you really cannot go wrong in your communication if you're highlighting these three core things. Because in your academics, and when you start talking about here's what they're going to become after they graduate, talking about your portrait of a graduate, that's where you're going to highlight your potentially clubs and organizations. That's where you're going to highlight the importance of your class sizes. That's where you're going to highlight parts of your academics that are really important. Why did parents cross schools off their list? Negative feedback, not a surprise. Negative visit experience, not a surprise based upon what we just went through. Negative interactions with school staff. Tuition costs, 50%. So that's an interesting one. I think we can always feel like, well, we can't keep increasing tuition. Families aren't going to come. Um, and to a degree, that might be true. But one of the studies, when I was working with independent school management, we did a study with the National Business Officers Association. And there was a study done that essentially said that your tuition didn't really have an impact on enrollment, the value did. And that as long as parents see the value and experience the value, they will stay. But the moment they feel like they're not getting the bang for the buck, they don't see the ROI, they will leave. So families are leaving at a faster rate than they ever used to, um, because they are looking. It used to be where if they came, they stayed. That is not the case anymore. So reinforcing the value proposition is of vital importance. And then we can see here difficulty finding parent reviews was a little bit influential. And if your website is not easy to navigate, that turns them off as well. So location, tuition cost, unimpressive academics, on-campus experience, these are the things to look at. So people don't just choose schools for academics per se, but they eliminate for bad reviews, poor interactions. Some of these are obvious ones. But taking a look at your website, I always like to do the 2-click test. Can somebody get to their main destination within 2 clicks? If it takes longer than that, try to cut that down. If you have to just create an account in order to get an inquiry, I know some software platforms force you to do that. I would usually kind of navigate away from that. Um, yeah. Any surprising data points there? All right. I'm going to keep on rolling along. And so, Lindsay, so you pop on. Lindsay, any comments on here before
No,
I
it
don't want
looks
to
like you're
miss
going
you?
to roll right into what my comment was going to be, and that is just making sure that when you look at your website, that it is up to date. So, when you look at the website, if the last thing that is posted was an event from 2019,
Mm,
um, that might be something that a parent would flag as a concern. So, people can be very savvy about navigating the websites and really considering this. If we give attention to detail in what we promote to the community, that it may impact their school experience. So I think just reminding folks to keep those websites up to date. And some of the ways that I've seen schools navigate that, they might have a parent volunteer who's very tech savvy, who can help with some of that social media content. And actually, I visited a school not too long ago where they had their high school students generating some content. Now, the content was moderated before it was posted, but back in the day when I was in school, we had, uh, a, a yearbook committee, we had a school newspaper, and I thought it was so clever that this school was giving their high school students the opportunity to generate content and create a digital newsletter that was then shared on their website. I thought it was a really great marketing tool.
I I love that. That actually reminded me. Let me see if they're still active. Hold on. Mercy Academy. I think, of course, it's just pulling up their TikTok club. Where I'm headed with this is there was a school, I believe it was Mercy Academy. So the question, this actually kind of gets back to your question of how do you create content on other platforms? What this school did is they created a TikTok club, and their
Oh, I
high
love
school,
it.
it was moderated. Everything was posted to the school's TikTok account, but the students would join a TikTok club and they would create TikTok content. So, I mean, nothing resonates better than other students creating content. They volunteered to
Precisely.
join. It's obviously monitored and supervised. Let me see if this is them. I think this is them, where they're creating their own content. Gotta find their,
Oh, that is so fun.
yeah,
And to your point, how adolescents relate to their peers, in part of the decision making process, I think that's really a great way, well, to communicate to the families too. It's
yeah.
a touch point with current families, with the community, with prospective families and students. Yeah,
Let me
that's
send this.
brilliant.
Just want to see if I could find it here somewhere. Academics. Yeah,
What
I don't want
what
to.
a
I don't want
great
to spend too much time. But
Yeah,
yeah,
what a great
it's a
club
great point you
idea. I
brought
love
up.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, in terms of the website, it's very important. We know that's the landing spot, no matter where you come from. As you can see here, navigation, navigation, navigation. That's a big one. I will say the other big one for me, from a marketing person, I don't like when I see this. When you have to enter your contact information in order to get your tuition. I've seen schools do that, maybe at a recommendation from an agency as a way to generate a lead. But hey, you got their contact information, now they get their tuition. Um, Nowadays, transparency is paramount. I think it's more important. I've looked at a lot of Google Analytics accounts, and many times the analytics look like this. Somebody comes to your website, they go to your tuition, and then they leave, right? That's
Right.
that's the expectation. Your job is how do we keep them there? How do we keep them engaged on the tuition page? It isn't, don't just make it a business page like here's our tuition, here's our fees, here's who we're responsible for, click here to apply. Talk about the investment. Why invest in the education? Do you have a great financial aid program? Highlight that. Um, how many of your families are on financial assistance? Or um, your goal is to really keep people engaged on that page and not leaving. So if you go to your analytics page, your analytics, and you look at your tuition and you have a high bounce rate that tells you people leave after that website, think about how you can really create a great tuition page and not just have it gated so you get their information. That ends up becoming a very frustrating. And because many times you won't get somebody that might be interested, like I'm not giving you any information just to get your tuition. I'm going to look at these three other schools. So this this is a big one for me, in my opinion. But ultimately, outdated. You know exactly what you said, Lindsay. Do you have a blog post from 2021? Do you have an event from 2019? Make sure those are updated and too cluttered. And again, nice, clean. It doesn't have to be a $50,000 website. Um, I will say when we look to build websites for schools, so we have like websites that are um, really great for like follows all these rules. But one of the rules that we follow is this concept of story brand. If you're not familiar with story brand, really great book. It's how to tell the story on your website. I've read the books. I've taken the workshops. It's about how to structure your messaging on your website that tells a really compelling story and why it positions you as an ideal solution for in their case, your ideal client or your ideal parent. So they have a lot of really great free resources that show how to structure. But when we build websites for schools, we actually base it upon the story brand structure. All right, as we come towards the end here, student influence. This is where I was going before. We know students are influencing the decision making drastically. Even at preschool and elementary, many children have substantial influence. So this kind of goes into that social media, making sure your content is resonating with the kids as well. But yeah, parents are saying that children are influencing their decision making. So you're not just marketing to the parents anymore. Many times you're marketing to those middle schoolers and those elementary kids. So it's what you put on YouTube is going to get consumed potentially by them.
Mhm.
All right. This was an interesting one. How many schools they consider? 60% of families are considering three or more schools.
Wow.
24% are considering more than five. So so I want you to start combining a lot of these data points. Parents are taking more than 50% of parents are taking 12 months or more to make a decision. In that process, they're also looking at 3 to 5 options seriously, not just one. So your marketing has to differentiate YU. It has to be multi-touch point and long term. So that's my big takeaway here. So if they're talking to you, they're talking to two, three, four others, and that gets into your messaging and why us, and thinking about all the things that we just learned about the data and what families are looking for. So if we summarize all of this, and now let me put this in the chat now. So didn't want everybody to jump ahead. Let me get you a copy of this link. Done. Let me hold on, share. How do I manage access? Copy link. Yep.
Clint, this
Everyone.
presentation has been so helpful. I've learned so many things that I'm going to share with school leaders as I go out and
Awesome.
consult with different schools. And you're just right on the money on so many of these things and new strategies that I've heard as well. So I so appreciate that. And to your comment around the tuition, I have heard that so many times that parents, if they have to enter their information, they feel like there's something being hidden from them, or
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think just having the tuition posted it's important for families to know what to expect, and that those rates be maintained and that they're current as well. But it really helps
Yes.
parents make a decision, and it's important information for both parties, right? If you have a family that maybe that's not their price point, then they know, which schools to keep at the top of their list. I think it's really important information.
Yeah, like I said, I love going through this data as well because there's things we can make assumptions about things, but then when you get the data, it's like, ooh, I didn't realize that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and yeah, I agree with you about the tuition. Even if we think about how we buy things, anything, don't you hate
Right?
it when you can't find the pricing on the website? You get annoyed. Same thing with schools.
Yeah, or
Um,
even if you pick up an item off the rack and it's like, where is the tag? Like, I need
exactly,
to know what the
exactly,
price is here. So
exactly.
it's
I
an
hate it.
important consideration. Yep.
And so everybody, let me leave you with this, and then certainly if you have questions, toss them in there, and we can go back to anything. But we actually call this the family journey. So like when we lay out everything that we just went through, they have to be aware that you exist, that you have to get found and search. Then they look at your reputation, right? That's the reviews, your website, and it's after they do this digital research that they decide to either come for a visit, and then you hope they enroll, they apply, and they influence the next person's decision. Um, and but this is a lot to do, right? I know the worst thing you could ever hear is we're the best kept secret, right? Um, and how do you create the awareness? How do you get found? Make sure you're tending to all the things with your reputation. So this is actually why um, we oh, and I think there was a question here, Sandra, about yearly tuition or monthly. And Lindsay, I saw you said you recommend monthly. I think that just went to the host and panelists. So
Oh,
the answer to your question, Sandra, was Lindsay had said monthly. um, oh, go ahead if you wanted to expand upon that
I
one.
was just going to add that it really depends on your program. Some programs offer a preferred rate if you pay your entire year's tuition at the beginning of the year. So if that's something you offer, but generally families want to know how to budget. And so offering it a monthly breakdown, if you're accepting tuition on a monthly basis, you really want to give parents the information that fits with how you're operating. So that monthly tuition is usually how tuition is collected, and that's how I recommend schools communicate that to families.
Awesome. All right. So yeah, so as I look at this, so how do we position our marketing and admissions to match that data? And I call this the family journey. The problem is either a lot to do or you have to pay a lot of people to do this, paying agencies, doing SEO, which will cost you about $1,000 a month, setting up your admission tools, which is going to cost you a ton. I mean, look, this is why, in partnership with the Montessori Foundation, with Montessori Compass, we put together the growth suite here so that instead of having this all piecemeal, like you open up let me pull this up here. You open up the growth suite, you have access to be able to run your advertising, do your marketing, do your social media posting, do your email marketing. You have blog posts ready to go. You can do all of your admissions, your billing, your classroom management, all in one spot. So if you're interested in learning more about how the software, which is finally a true all-in-one platform that really didn't exist before. Really, this existed. You had to get all these different tools and duct tape them together, and they cost a lot, and it's tough to manage. Um, if you want to do a demo of this and take a look at it and how this all works, if you go to you go to webinar. Let me put this in the chat, just if you want to book some time. So you'll see there's two options. The left side is if you want to do the classroom management tool. So that's like your teacher observations and recording attendance. What we're talking about today, you see my picture there, is the marketing and admissions platform. You can book some time, jump into a group demo, and we'll go through it in more detail about exactly how it works. We could set you up with a free account. You can play around with it. But it was all set up to match how families are researching. It allows you to execute these marketing and mission strategies without feeling like you need to pay somebody to do it or duct tape all these pieces together. And also on the survey at the end, if you want more information about this, just check the box. We'll give you more information. Um, but yeah, that's my little plug for them. I'm gonna see if there's anything else here I had in mind. Um, but yeah, so that's the main thing. So yeah, we have the Montessori Growth Suite, and for non-Montessori schools that are on here, we also have the Growth Suite for non-Montessori schools. But yeah, it does everything: your advertising, your marketing, your missions, tuition, classroom management, parent communication, all in one spot. So yeah, really excited about that. Schools are loving it, and because it's a lot these days with the digital age, and I was just sharing with schools how that are using this already. We're rolling out an AI SEO tool, right? So you can get found when you type in best private school near me and that ChatGPT or that Google AI result comes up. How do you get your placed in there? And there's actually strategies now to do that. So it's amazing. Um, all right. Erica said, can Montessori Growth Suite be used as an SIS? So parts of I would say that's the one piece of the SIS that probably not, depending upon what you need it for. Like if you're doing attendance and classroom, your classroom management, that portion. But in an SIS, kind of like what you might get with like a fax or a Blackbaud, there's definitely going to be some more things in on the SIS side. But it depends on what you want to see. There's elements in there. Yeah, so the SIS with fax is probably going to have some more bells and whistles in there. But what I would say is based upon maybe what you need, there's a lot in here that it can accomplish. What other questions? Any other questions as we're here? Well, all right, everybody. We just passed the hour mark. I appreciate everybody sticking around and hope this was helpful. Like I said, if you want some more information about the software, you can always go to montessoricompass.com, schedule a webinar, or in the survey, let us know that you're interested, and we'll send you some more information. You can book a demo. But will this be available in the library? Yeah. So Sandra, this is you can always go to the Montessori Foundation YouTube page. This will be posted there as well for you to watch, as well as all of our webinars. You can go to Montessori Foundation YouTube page, and it'll be listed there. All right, everybody. Lindsay, thank you as always. Great having you on these. Looking forward to hope if we don't get a chance to chat, have a great holiday break, everybody. And what is the link for non-Montessori schools? Yeah, for non-Montessori schools, here's the link. Should have put that in there. So I own the company Ames, and we partnered with Montessori Compass to form the Montessori Growth Suite. Um, but if you're a non-Montessori school, it's the same software. Um, but there's some Montessori elements that we build out specifically for Montessori schools. So yeah, you can always come here, book a demo in here. Either myself or one of our team members will be on here to do the demo, and that's it for now, everybody. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of the week. Hopefully, see you on next week's webinar. Take care.